Thank you for the opportunity to be in Mobile and be with your pastor. I was with him at his other church in Florida, and he did a great job there, and it's great to see Cottage Hill with these people here. I preached at Cottage Hill, I guess, 30 years ago. I can't. Anybody here when I preached 30 years ago? And hey, there you go. See, you're really old. So am I. I am a psychologist by training. The first job I had, I was Director of Clinical Services at a mental health clinic. I was there for 3 years. I left the mental health clinic. One reason I left, I couldn't tell the staff from the patients. Except the staff had the keys. Other than that, I couldn't tell a whole lot of difference. The staff seemed to have as many problems as the patients had. So I have had a unique life. One week I worked at a mental health clinic. Next week I worked at a Baptist church. People say, was that a big adjustment? I say, no, the staff still have the keys, but other than that, I can't tell a whole lot of difference sometimes. Life takes some strange turns, doesn't it? I was a preacher's kid, thought I'd never be a pastor, never pastor a church, but God has a unique way of looking at things. I'll be honest with you, though, I got tired of being a psychologist. I got tired of listening. I got tired of saying, I can understand how you feel that way, I mean, I just got tired of listening. I reached a point where I thought, why am I doing the listening and why are these people doing the talking? I mean, I got a PhD in psychology. I know stuff. They're seeing a psychologist. They know nothing. Why don't I do the talking? Why don't they do the listening? Doesn't that sound like a good idea? It wasn't a good idea. It didn't go well at all. It goes something like this. The guy would say, the reason I'm a loser because my dad was an alcoholic. I'd say, well, you know, there's another way of looking at it. Maybe your dad's an alcoholic because you're a loser. I mean, there's another way of looking at it. People will not pay for that kind of advice, you understand. They will not pay for that. So I decided to move on. I just kept hearing story after story. I've heard so many stories. You pray for me. I'm afraid just before I die, somebody else's life's going to flash before me instead of my own, because I spent all my time listening to their stories, having enough time for the stories myself. So the psalmist says this way, make a joyful noise unto the Lord, all ye lands. Serve the Lord with what? With gladness. I've probably preached in 600 churches, and the churches today, I don't think we serve with gladness like we used to. It's almost like we serve with madness, you know, that we're mad and upset about anything. But the psalmist says, he's God, we're not, right? So it's his problem, not your problem. So just relax today, serve the Lord with gladness, enjoy life, because I'm going to give you some free therapy right off the bat, okay? Not going to be individual, probably can't afford to be individually, but it's going to be free, all right? So it's going to lead you to a pledge. If you don't do it, it doesn't work, all right? So put your hand over your heart. I'm going to lead you in a little pledge. Just repeat after me. I, being of sound mind, do hereby acknowledge that I have not, nor have I ever, or will I ever, control the universe. Therefore, I resign as general manager of the universe. Don't you feel better already? He's God, you're not. Get over it, all right? Get over it. You see, let me tell you where most of your frustration and stress comes from. You're trying to straighten out somebody else. Matter of fact, they probably just came to mind, didn't you? If you could just get that person, do what you want them to do. If your goal in life is to straighten out somebody else, the only person you can be is a mortician. That's the only guy that straightens people out and they stay straight, right? Otherwise, you got to get up every morning and re-straighten them again. That Psalm 100 not only says serve with gladness, it says for the Lord is good. If you understand the goodness of God, you will stay psychologically healthy. He is holy, and that's great. But that's not great for us because we're not holy. But he's good, good, good. My favorite theologian is Dennis the Menace. Remember Dennis? Dennis is over at Mrs. Wilson's house. Remember Mrs. Wilson? And they're playing, and Mrs. Wilson gives them cookies. And Dennis's friends turn to Dennis and says, why is Mrs. Wilson giving us cookies? Does she think we're good? And Dennis looks at him and said, no, she knows we're no good. She's my neighbor, you know. And then the theology. Then Dennis says this, Mrs. Wilson doesn't give us cookies because we're good. Mrs. Wilson gives us cookies because she's good. When you understand the goodness of God, then you start to understand the grace of God, and you start to live that life of gladness. How do you last in the Christian life? You know, people start doing things well, and it's hard to keep doing things well for a long period of time. It's hard to last. I'm going to teach you today, how can you last? Because I believe the Christian faith will grow not by promotion, but by attraction. When people see that we're living a kind of life they'd like to have, when we have the kind of marriage they'd like to have, I believe it will grow by attraction. It's an interesting story in the Old Testament. Daniel, King Cyrus was there, and he said, all these young men, we're going to take and we're going to make them serve our God. And Daniel had a winsome personality. Don't you wish all Christians had a winsome personality? Daniel said, look, I know you serve your God, but you know, we have our God, and I know you think your God's life works, but we think the life we live works, and our God is the true God. And so let's just do a scientific experiment. Let's let you serve your God, and let me and my group serve my God. At the end, let's just see whose life's better off. And they said, okay. The world's usually open to looking at things from an objective point of view. And so they served their God, and Daniel and his group served their God. And here's what the king said after the period of study. Daniel's group is 10 times better. Wow. Now, I'm in lots of churches. Let me tell you about us. We have 10 times more knowledge than the world has. We know where this king was and where Thyatira is in the Bible, and Matthew, Mark, Luke, and we know all that. But is your life 10 times better than those people out there? I doubt it. I doubt it. So the world's not attracted because they see that life, well, that's not a life, it's not any better than my life. So how do you live that life? Well, I'm going to go through the word last, L-A-S-T, and I probably won't finish, but I'll just do the best I can, okay? L stands for learn how the world works. You see, you have an upward call being a Christian, but you have a downward drift. That is your Adam suit, your body. You might want to call it your Eve suit, but you inherit from we all come from the Adam's family, all right? Uncle Adam and Aunt Eve. And what you get from them is this body. And your whole life involves trying to redeem this body, which you never will redeem, all right? You never will get it to do what it's supposed to do. The Apostle Paul, here's what he said about his Adam suit. The things I want to do, I don't do. And the things I don't want to do, I end up doing. Now, that's not the teenager. That's the greatest Christian that ever lived, right? So what does that mean for you? It means you're in serious trouble. That's what that means. Well, let me just check it out here. Do a little therapy. How many of you have ever done something you knew you shouldn't do? Just raise your hand there. Okay, that's most of us. The rest of you, liar, liar, pants on fire. By the way, don't you wish liar, liar, pants on fire was really true? I mean, that would make those political ads so much entertaining, wouldn't it? But you see, we have this Adam suit, and it does not want to act better. It wants to feel better. It does not want to plan. It wants a pill. It does not want education. It wants medication. That's my Adam suit, and that's your Adam suit. And your job in life is really to try to get it to do what it doesn't want to do. I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan. They're actually going to be pallbearers at my funeral so they can let me down one last time. We had a coach named Tom Landry. And here's what Tom Landry says: my job as a coach is to make men do what they do not want to do in order to accomplish what they've dreamed of doing all their lives. You see, that's my job. That's the pastor's job. That's the parent's job. Matter of fact, that's your job with your own body. You're trying to get it to do what it does not want to do so you can get your hopes and dreams to come true, because it does not want to do it, I promise you. Now, best way I can describe that is give you a visual of an Adam suit that's not quite matured yet. How many, any 19-year-old males in your life? Any 19-year-old males? Or if you are a 19-year-old male, this will be about you, pretty much. 19-year-old males, their body has totally matured. They got an Adam suit that's, man, it's mature. It's got muscles and it's grown and it's tall as it's gonna get. It's totally matured. But the brain has not matured. So you got a mature Adam suit and an immature brain. Then you have a hormone called testosterone that floods the body. Now, when testosterone floods the body of a mature body and an immature brain, the scientific word is stupid juice. And if you're ever around a body like that, they're always saying things like, nobody's gonna tell me what to do. I mean, look at me, I can do whatever I want to. Nobody's gonna tell me what to do. I don't have to ride in that car. I can get on the top of the car at 70 miles an hour and hold on. Nobody's gonna tell me what to do. They say things like this: nobody's gonna tell me what to do. I'm joining the Marines. They just don't think through what they say, you know. But you have a team of some kind. I'm in the airports a lot, and there's always a team of some kind, and it's late at night, and they have these people movers. You see these people movers, they're like escalators on the floor, and they move and you move. I mean, it goes and you go. Man, I like them. You can make a lot of good time. Well, there's this team of some kind, and they decide to go down the people mover the wrong way. Why? Because they can, and they got a mature body, and stupid juice runs throughout it. So they really can't. Some of these half a mile long, but they can go the wrong way. I mean, they go the wrong way. And then they get all the way to the end. They got half a mile, all the way to the end. They start high-fiving each other. Nobody tells us what to do. We went the wrong way. And they don't realize the people mover's taking them all the way back to where they started. I can't tell you how many people I've worked with. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. God's not going to tell me what to do. If I want to eat it, I'm going to eat it. Smoke it, I'm going to smoke it. I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And they can for a while. And then you run into those people 10 years later. They've lost their job. They've lost their marriage. They're addicted to something. And they're right back where they started. You see, the world's a Ponzi scheme. The world always says you can have this without that. And you can for a short period of time. Unfortunately, by the time that shows up, you're usually addicted to this, and your life is a mess, because the world is a Ponzi scheme. Or the world says things like this: follow your heart. It's the stupidest advice I've ever heard. You don't follow your heart. You better talk to your heart. Your heart just tells you what you want, you see. That's just all your heart does. And see, your Adam suit, remember, wants to feel better. I'll give you an example of that. We're actually in Mobile, Alabama. Just about to close the curtain on the the hotel room when the hot light on the Krispy Kreme came on, just like a sign from God, just boom, you know. So I told my wife, look, honey, a sign from God, Krispy Kreme. I said, let's get some exercise and walk down to the Krispy Kreme. Now, here's what your Adam suit does. It's called rationalize. It means rational lies. It's lies you tell yourself to get what the heart wants. So let's get some exercise, walk down the Krispy Kreme. We get down to the Krispy Kreme, and guess what? They're cheaper by the dozen. God wants us to save money, get 12, all right? That's when I realized I could eat 8 Krispy Kreme donuts by myself, you know. Now, here's the problem with the Adam suit and the world. Consequences do not happen immediately. You can have the this for a while before the that shows up. If consequences happen immediately, I wouldn't have to go around telling people how to live. They'd figure it out themselves. I mean, if I went to Krispy Kreme and took a bite of a donut and it went plop and fat jumped right out on me, I'd go, good night. Did you see that fat jump out of there? That is a powerful donut. I am not even getting close to those things. It doesn't happen like that. Fat sneaks up on you while you sleep. It's slow. One day you get on the scale, it says 1 at a time, please. I mean, you're going to get big. You see, the world's a Ponzi scheme. The problem is you can have this, but eventually that will control you. It's a verse in Proverbs. It's not a very pretty verse, but the Proverbs, it says this: like a dog returns to its vomit. You don't even want to do it, and you do it, you see. In a way, your Adam suit is kind of like a dog. You ever been to somebody's house where the dog controlled the house? I mean, you're at the door, ringing the doorbell, trying to get in, and this dog is licking you and getting on your leg, and you're trying to get rid of the dog, and you're ringing the doorbell thinking, save me from this dog. And finally, they come to the door, and instead of saving you from the dog, they let the dog go in with you, you know. You're trying to eat, the dog's trying to get the food, you're trying to keep him down and eat at the same time. And then they always say this: is the dog bothering you? One time I'd like to say, evidently you're blind, that's a seeing eye dog, right? I mean, one time I'd like to say that, but I don't. And then they say something like this: well, that's how the dog shows affection, you see. It's not the way it is. See, the world's always lying to you. The world says stuff like this: life's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. No, it's not. The Bible says, whatsoever man sows, that shall he also reap. You tell me what you're doing, in the long term, I'll tell you how it's going to turn out. I promise you. Life's only like a box of chocolates if you get those. Remember they had years ago those Whitman samplers? Remember those? You could look on the top and tell you what's in the box. You know, you want peanuts and fudge, second from the right. Bango, you got it. But you see, you got to learn to control that Adam suit. Because if you don't, it will control you, and you will not have the kind of life God had in mind when he created you. A stands for appreciate. That's why the Bible is always talking about renewing your mind. Why? Because we come from the Adam's family. And what do we inherit also from the Adam's family? You want what you cannot have. It started with Adam and Eve. God gave them everything, and the only thing they wanted was what they could not have. And that's the way it is with you. That's the way it is with me. We have to learn to appreciate what we have, you see. That starts at a very early age, wanting what you don't have. See, as a rule, man's a fool. When he's hot, he wants it cool. When he's cool, he wants it hot. Always wanting what's not. As a rule, man's a fool. I mean, you know that, don't you? It starts very young. I took my daughter, Brianne, to learn how to ride the bike. Took her to Wet n Wild Water Park the fall of the year. Not a car in the parking lot. I said, Brianne, look at all this asphalt. You're going to be a bike rider just like your big sister. I mean, it's going to be great. And she said, what's that way down there? I said, don't worry about that. You're going to be a bike rider, going to ride on asphalt. I had to learn to ride on sand and rock, but you're going to go on asphalt. You're going to go fast. You're going to feel the wind against your face. You're going to be a bike rider. I said, Daddy, that's a pole way down there. I said, I know that's a pole, but look at all this asphalt. What if I hit the pole? You're not going to get the pole, Brianne. Look at all this asphalt. If I hit the pole, it's going to hurt. It's not going to hurt because you're not going to get the pole. Now get on a bicycle. You know how to teach a kid to ride a bike. Don't you run like crazy, feel the wind against your face. Look, you're a bike rider. What if I hit the pole? You're not going to hit the pole. And I let her go, and she headed straight for the pole. Daddy, I'm headed for the pole. Turn it to the right. Look at all that asphalt. Turn to the right. Turn right. I can't turn to the right. I'm headed for the pole. Turn to the left. Look at here. She mutilated that pole. By the time I got there, tears in her eyes, lips stuck out. I told you I was going to hit the pole. I said, I know, Brianne, because you focused on the pole. It's just a matter of focus. The facts are there's something wrong with everything. It's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with you. Something wrong with your car. You don't know it yet. There's something wrong with everything. And if you're not careful, that's what you focus on. It's always been that way from the beginning of time. Until God creates a new heaven, a new earth, it's something wrong with everything down here. And that's what you're going to focus on in your Adam suit. Remember the first church relocation committee? They had a chance to go to the promised land. The promised land. How good is that? Well, not good enough. 10 came back, not with grapes, with gripes. Not going to the promised land. Poles, big poles, giants, not going. 2 came back with grapes. Remember the story? Look how big these grapes are. What God said is true. This is a great place. Oh, those are big grapes, all right. Only big giants could grow big grapes like that. We're not going. And they didn't go. And they spent the rest of their life not in the promised land, but in pitiful land, griping and complaining. It's just a matter of focus. The facts are there's something wrong with everything. You might have heard about grandma and grandpa. They took their grandkids on vacation. Turned on the interstate, saw this big sign, Natural Park. We thought, oh, that'd be good for the grandkids, nature trails, things like that. And they pull in, and it really is a natural park. Let's be politically correct here. Clothing optional lifestyle. Maybe nudist camp. I realize this is Alabama. I'm talking naked people, okay? So they pull in, taking their kids, grandkids. Here comes 4 people on bicycles, not a stitch coming right at them. They're trying to put their hands up so the kids can't see, but you know how kids are. Oh, look at grandpa, look at those people, look at them. They look at them. They don't have their safety helmets on. Now, how could they focus on that? Because that's what they've been told their whole life to focus on. You know what the book says? You're to focus on things that are praiseworthy, on the good stuff. You see, and say, well, how can you do that? Because if you focus on God, then you can focus on the good, because God says even the bad can turn to good. The cross is the biggest plus sign in your life. Here's what the cross says. What the worst thing that anybody could do to somebody, crucifixion, became the best thing for everybody. If God has the power to do that, then he has the power to do whatever the world tries to do to you and take and use for you. You see, if God has the power, you'll pity people, because I don't know why they're trying to do those bad things to me, but they can't hurt me because God's the one with power. If you give people the power, you will pity yourself. You ever been around those people? Always said, they said so-and-so about me, and they did this, and they did that. Their favorite hymns, I love to tell the story. They tell it over and over and over again, and they become miserable people living in pitiful land instead of the promised land. Appreciate what you have. My girls, they always would want a dog. We had the empty nesters meeting the other night, and I told them life really begins when the kids leave home and the dog dies. That's pretty much when life really begins. But my kids always wanted a dog. And these dogs, we lived in the city, and the father, the daddy of a city dog is a miserable existence. Because the city dog is always trying to get out of the fence. That's all their whole life is. And you try to get the fence high enough, you try to get it low enough, you try to finally get the gate tight enough, and you think you've got that dog in that fence in the backyard. And the dog waits for the front door and the back door to open at the same time, and it shoots through the house and runs through the neighborhood, and you still got to go chase the dog down, take him, put him back in there again, and the whole thing starts all over again. It's a miserable existence being the daddy of a city dog. Then we moved to the country. Dogs in the country sit on the porch and there's no fence. They just sit there. Why? Because they know they got it the best there. be a country dog. Sit on God's porch that he's given you and enjoy the life that he's given you. That's how you serve the Lord with gladness. Appreciate what you have. You say, well, Charles, I don't have anything to appreciate. Well, just be thankful for your nose. I mean, just be glad God put your nose on the right side up. I mean, what if God put your nose on upside down? Every time it rained, you'd drown. Every time you sneezed, you'd blow your thankless head off. Be thankful for your nose. S stands for serve out of who you are instead of trying to impress people with what you do. I'll come back and teach you that again sometime. T stands for this. Tell yourself every day what's really important in life. Tell yourself every day what's really important. You say, well, what's important in life? Well, to know what's important in life, you live life backwards. You go to the end of your life, you look back on your life. One day you'll come to the end of your life. One day you're going to die, okay? Death runs in my family. I think it runs in yours, right? Pretty much come in this world, no teeth, no hair, no bladder control. That's pretty much how you're going out. Okay, you're gonna die. It's a short trip from diapers to Depends. Don't get arrogant about life. Now, when you die, what are they going to do? Well, they're gonna put you in a box. Family's gonna say some nice things about you, and then they're gonna go home and eat potato salad. That's pretty much what's gonna happen. That's what's gonna happen. Now, how do you know what's important? Well, see, life's really like a Monopoly game. Remember Monopoly? Remember the good ones, Boardwalk, Park Place? Those were good. I mean, I drove through Mobile. Some of y'all doing pretty good, pretty nice houses. Some of you didn't, maybe not Boardwalk good, but like Marvin Gardens good, you know, like the yellow ones and the green ones, those are pretty good. Remember Baltic on the corner? Even when you landed on Baltic, you didn't want it, did you? I don't think I want Baltic, you know, $63. I don't think I want Baltic. Some of you, your life really hasn't panned out exactly the way you thought. You thought it was maybe more like Boardwalk, and it's really more Baltic. I want to encourage you today because it doesn't really matter. Because it is like Monopoly. When it's all over, everything's going back in the box. Next generation play with it or fight over it just like a Monopoly game. So what's really important? Well, there's a powerful business phrase. You've probably heard it in the business world. They say it this way: learn to think outside the box. See, go to somebody's funeral. Little homework, go to somebody's funeral. Take Yogi Berra's advice. Yogi Berra said if you don't go to their funeral, they probably won't come to yours. That's what Yogi said. So take Yogi's advice. Go to somebody's funeral, and I'll tell you what's going to show up. Only three things: faith, family, friends. Only things that don't go back in the box, and the only things that really matter in this thing we call life. Tell yourself every day what's really important in life. My wife was with me. She didn't grow up in Alabama like I did. I grew up in Alabama. Her father was from upstate New York. He was a brilliant engineer, scientist, pulled the first switch on the first nuclear reactor in this country. So she has culture. She has class. She's tried to class me up, take me places, give me culture, you know. Said we're going to the Met. I thought we were going to a ball game. Pretty excited about it, and come to find out it wasn't a ball game. She likes the opera. I don't get the opera. My neighborhood, you shot a guy, he died. He didn't bleed and sing for 20 minutes. He just died, you know. But she wanted to go to Paris, France for one of our anniversaries and go to the Louvre. Anybody ever been to the Louvre? Raise your hand. You been to the Louvre? For you don't know, the Louvre's one of the largest museums in the world. It's like the state of Maine or something. I mean, it's huge. And if you're a guy like me and you have no class and you get the opportunity to go to the Louvre, I'd pass it up. It's a lot of naked men statues. I don't get it. I mean, it's like before 1850, did they not have clothes, you know? But hey, I love my wife. We went to the Louvre, and I learned something at the Louvre. 1911, the Mona Lisa, the masterpiece, was stolen from the Louvre. Now, they knew they'd get it back eventually. You can't sell the Mona Lisa at a pawn shop. They knew they'd get it back. They just didn't know when. So for 2 years, they had a blank spot on the wall where the masterpiece used to be. So Mona Lisa's stolen. It's going to be a while to get it back. They just left the blank space on the wall. Here's what they found out. More people came during that 2-year period to look at that blank space on the wall than the previous 12 years put together to look at the real masterpiece. And you say that's weird. No, that's normal. That's me, and that's you. We don't forget. We don't appreciate the masterpieces that God puts into our lives until they become blank spaces. If you have someone to love, you need to love them now. If you have someone to forgive, you need to forgive them now. Because I have no class, I like country music. My wife says that's an oxymoron, country music. It doesn't go together. And some of it is pitiful, isn't it? Papa loved mama, mama loved men, mama's in the graveyard, papa's in the pen. No redeeming social value there whatsoever. Or my wife ran off with my best friend and I miss him. That wasn't a good song. But one went something like this. I hear tell of millionaires and billionaires and such who gathered all the treasure in the world and they still don't have enough. If money could buy peace of mind, I guess I'd have it all. But all the money in the world won't hold you when you fall. Then it says this. Have a roof over my head, my kids have all been fed, and the woman I love most lies close beside me in my bed. Lord, give me the eyes to see exactly what that's worth, and I'll be the richest man on earth. Because of Jesus Christ, my friend, you're incredibly rich. Because he who is incredibly rich became poor, so that one day you would be incredibly rich. Let me tell you how rich. So rich, you will even inherit the riches of eternal life. I go around the country telling mainly Christians how to live their best life, how to control that Adam suit. But the bottom line is this: you will never totally redeem your Adam suit. God's going to kill it to get you into heaven. No one ever really does their best. You can't, because of that Adam suit. Now, the closer you get to it, better life you're going to have down here, but nobody ever does their best. Two farmers sitting on a hill talking to each other, and a dog comes over the hill, one of the farmer's dogs, and he's chasing a coyote. And the other farmer said, look at your dog chasing that coyote. He's pretty fast. And the other farmer said, well, he's not doing his best. And then about 15 minutes later, in the opposite direction, now the dog is out front, and there's 9 coyotes chasing the dog. And the old farmer said, now he's doing his best. I've given you a lot of good advice today, but let me give you some good news. God knew you'd never do your best. So he sent his best, Jesus Christ, to live a life you could never live and conquer death, which you could never do in your Adam suit, and give you a place in his forever family. That's the good news of the gospel. And I pray that somebody today would have the faith to believe that. Let's pray. Father, thank you for our time together. Thank you that you've given us this thing called life. Lord, help us to do our best. We know the more we control this thing we call our Adam suit, the better life we're going to have. But Lord, also thank you that we can relax because you came and lived that life we could never live, and you conquered death. All you ever wanted was a family, and you included us. Give someone here the faith to believe that today. Others may need to come during this hymn of invitation because they just have a problem and they want to talk to somebody, or maybe they just want to kneel and be grateful for something in their life. Be thankful for the treasures you've given them. We know no one ever regrets coming up here to this altar. We thank you for Jesus. In his name we pray. Amen. Let's stand, let's sing. God has called you today. There'll be people down here to help you. You come if God's spoken to you.